y'all. This week has really gotten away from me, maybe for some obvious reasons. We've all kind of been waiting in the balance to figure out how our country is going to move forward. And with that said, I really want to lift up our friend Michelle Palmer. My God, what a hero for running for public office and for running hard and long. And Michelle, even though the numbers didn't come out in your favor, it was my honor and pleasure to vote for you. And just thank you for your time. Thank you for your gift of courage. What a week. I know that I don't want to assume where everyone is on the waiting, but we're all waiting for some outcome. And no matter what the outcome is of this election, we all know we've still got work to do. We've got to attend to the daily moment, the daily needs of the students, the daily needs of our fellow teachers and those that we lift up every single day. And it's actually perfect that this week, the topic that I am on when it comes to restorative discipline is repair. It is clear to me, not so much as an indicator of the votes that came out in the non-white or non-white presenting parts of our society, but in the white presenting parts of our society, that we have some serious repair work to do. We're split in terms of how we want to see this America grow. And that indicates to me a big wound and a lot of hurt. So when it comes to repair and thinking about relationships, we want to center again that who we are working with are often people that are hurting and that have been through something. And in order to repair anything, any kind of problem, any kind of conflict, we need to understand the root cause of that conflict or the root cause of that behavior. So in children, in the work that we're doing in schools, we can either spend time meeting children's emotional needs by filling their cup with love, or we can spend time dealing with the behaviors caused from their unmet needs. Either way, we spend the time. I don't know if you remember a while back I said something to the effect of all violence and almost all conflicts that disrupts into violence or unkind behaviors is a result of unmet needs. So with students, when they're acting out, it is so often a place of maybe a long time unmet need, or the need in the moment hasn't been met to be listened to or heard. And when kids are in a space of not having their needs met, or adults for that matter, getting big doesn't work. Punitive punishments don't work. I know from experience with my middle son, who has big emotions and big needs to be seen and heard and valued for his industriousness. When I react in anger or frustration with him, it propels and pushes him further into anger and frustration. It pushes him further away from me. When I can relax into what are the needs right now, what is he presenting, what is he trying to get from me, then I show up automatically as much more empathic. To get to the idea of repair, I want to frame it this way. So our country has a long unmet history with the idea of repair, of reparations, post-Reconstruction. 40 acres and a mule were promised and never given. We have said we promised equity, we promised inclusion, we promised integration, we promised to end separate but equal. None of those things have been entirely met. We are working with students in schools who have been products of a still unequal education system. So the repair work, it begins with what we see again as the root problem. And I want to invite us to think of it this way. Some of us have hobbies that include repairing old cars, repairing old furniture. I'm a hobbyist woodworker. I love making furniture. I have repaired old furniture. The doors in my house upstairs are all doors that I've kind of made into canvases that I've repaired and rehung in the house. We are willing to repair bicycles, clocks, any number of things. In fact, when our iPhone breaks or it cracks on the screen, we take it to the store and we get it repaired. So I want to invite us to lean into a less objective idea about repair and into a more relational idea about repair. There's a philosopher named Martin Buber who talked about the difference between an I-it, an I-you, and an I-thou relationship to reality. When we see the other as thou, in other words, thou has a holy resonance to it, we cannot think anything less than that person is deserving of our love and our willingness to repair. When we think of the other as it, as separate from, then we maintain that objective distance. We act like it's a watch. We might be willing to do the physical work to repair the damage, but not necessarily the emotional, and I would say deeply spiritual and psychological work of repairing damage. So it's an invitation to kind of have an I-thou stance toward reparation, toward relationship. So I want to go through a little bit why some behaviors might happen. So sometimes it could be not understanding. A student couldn't keep up with a lesson. It could be relationships with peers or with a teacher. It could be undiagnosed disorders that we don't know about, but that are making it hard for kids to concentrate and learn, not feeling welcome or safe in the environment. I talked last week about circles and restorative circles, that if we do those on a daily or weekly basis, we're creating a safer environment. Feeling unwanted in the classroom, feeling unengaged, boredom, not having a challenging enough work to do, or negative emotions about a particular subject. So let's say a kid comes into a math class with having a whole bunch of extra baggage about not having done well in math in the past, and now all of that's coming into that room with them. So all of us at any given moment are carrying our past and our possibility into a room with us. So when we think about how we frame our responses to disruptive behavior or disordered conduct, if you will, we have to ask ourselves some questions. What rule or fundamental agreement was broken? Who broke it? And is there a punishment that they deserve? From there, we usually have like a list of possible punishments, and the most serious of which is suspension and expulsion. I want to say that a suspension, sure, it can be helpful. Let's go through the positives of suspensions. A suspension can teach a student that a negative behavior has a serious consequence. It removes a struggling student from the environment for a really short time. It reduces the classroom disruptions that the teacher has to face or deal with. And it alleviates classroom management for the instructor. Here are the negatives of suspension. It tends to support labeling and over-identifying with students. It's a temporary Band-Aid, and it doesn't have a very long-lasting effect. Victims get very little from the process. Anyone else who has suffered in the process of the disruptive behavior, there's no restoration. It's not typically a teaching tool. There's little accountability, and suspensions and expulsions place these high-risk students who might be struggling academically or emotionally outside of the community, which can lead to higher dropout rates and criminal activities. If we're familiar at all with the pipeline of school to prison, we know that the kids who face the most in and out of school suspensions and or expulsions are the ones who tend to drop out and are more susceptible to face punishments for crimes that they did or did not commit, or to get involved in dangerous activity. We know that when a student fails a grade, that they're that much less likely to complete what's ahead of them, high school to college. And this affects Black and brown communities more than any other community. Black and brown boys more than any other demographic within the community. So we really have to ask ourselves, do the positives of punitive punishment outweigh the negatives? Is it worth losing the relationship or losing the connection with a kiddo just to have more ease, largely for us? So if at any point we have the option to repair in the moment, or even following a suspension, so that's the other piece. When we can repair disruptive behavior or unwanted behavior in the moment, that's the best outcome. But if a suspension becomes necessary or something more punitive becomes necessary, we still have an opportunity to repair. In other words, what we want to do is show that student when they come back into the community that we want them in the community, that they too are part of this, that timeout or whatever it was so that everybody could reset. And either one-on-one or in a small group or with the whole class, we conduct a repair. We conduct a kind of re-entry into the group. One thing that we can do with high school students is get them to reflect more. So I had created a reflection sheet, which you guys have, and it's in the Google file, I believe. I'm happy to resend it as a PDF if necessary. But one thing that we can get high school students to do is to really reflect on their behavior and to engage in sort of personal responsibility taking and asking themselves what could have gone differently and what do I wish the outcome had been. So one option with high school students, once they've been able to do the reflection process, is to say, you can come up with a solution to how we deal with this behavior, or I can come up with a solution or consequence to what will be. And if I come up with the consequence, I'm not going to be open to feedback. We can also come up with it together. It can be a discussion. What do you think you would learn from, and what do I think you might learn from? So it's really important in that space to do a little bit of emotional judo, okay? To make sure that we are hearing the student and that they are hearing us, and that we are making space primarily for that student who has less authority than we do all the time. No matter what we think we do or say, there is always a power dynamic between a student and a teacher. And we have to honor that. So when we allow students to be heard, then we're automatically kind of disrupting that power dynamic a little bit. So we create a plan for repair with students. We think about these questions. What do we think needs to be done in order to make things right? How are you going to carry out this plan or repair the harm? How does this repair the harm that was done? And does it take care of everyone affected by the negative behavior in the environment? And then we execute the plan. So follow through is really important in repair. We have to have follow through. A lot of times we drop this ball because we're too overwhelmed, we have too much on our plate, or it didn't happen the way that in the time that we wanted it to happen in. So execution and actually following through is really important in repair. When the repair is done, so there's a twofold process, or maybe I should say three. There's the reflection to get to the repair. There's the repair itself. And then there's the post-reflection after the repair. How did that work for you? How do you feel now? How are you able to show up in this environment in a way that could be different, better, more powerful for yourself and for others? So we're creating a pathway that doesn't go like this. We're creating a pathway that is forward moving. It breaks the cycle of what we might call like a crazy 8 type of behavior, where it's like, I do the behavior, I have this negative outcome, I keep doing the behavior, I keep having this negative outcome. We disrupt that cycle by saying, can you imagine doing something different? I want to zoom us way out for a second. In the universe, there is this mysterious, unseeable substance that scientists have called dark matter, okay? We can't see dark matter, but we can see the effects of dark matter because of the way gravity works, because of the way objects in relation to one another work. So gravity and dark matter, it is said, are the things that keep our universe from flying apart. That's a beautiful notion to me. The invisible things that keep our universe from flying apart. There's a little stanza from a poem by the poet Tracy K. Smith. She was, a couple years ago, the Poet Laureate of the United States, and I believe she read at one of Obama's inaugurations. Her book is called Life on Mars, and this is the signature poem. The first stanza reads, Tina says, what if dark matter is like the space between people when what holds them together isn't exactly love? And I think that sounds right. How strong the pull can be, as if something that knows better won't let you drift apart so easily. And how small and heavy you feel, stuck there, spinning in place. So dark matter, it can be the thing that keeps us from flying apart. What we insert into that dark matter is whether we want to love more or fear more. Whether we want to show up for relationship more, or whether we want to disrupt relationship more. That's the invitation I see when it comes to doing repair work. Are we going to show up for love, or are we going to show up for fear? I think this is true on a student level. I think this is true with each other. And I want to even say I think this is true on a national level. I hope you guys have a restful weekend. I haven't been sleeping very well. Hope you get some time to yourselves and some time to just enjoy what has turned out to be a really beautiful month. I promise next week I'll be better about timing, and I'll see you soon.